Hi guys, it's Penelope in London, and today is the 22nd of the month, and what we're looking at, it's gone so quick in my view, and what we're looking at is the chart of today, and I want to look at a few aspects. It's really important with astrology to understand which Simon Forster of Raising Vibrations taught me, which was the most useful thing when we're looking at astrology, is that astrology is just a bunch of symbols and timings and mathematical calculations. And the question is, what are you feeling? So if we know what we're feeling and we look at the chart, then we can understand what the chart is trying to tell us and make sense of that. So if we look, for instance, we take the collective chart, and that gets imposed onto or transposed onto our natal chart, and we'll have these planets in different houses. So for me, as an example, that this here, Uranus, Mars, and Lilith and the Moon right now are in my 6th house at the moment. They're transiting my 6th house, and the Pluto is in my 2nd house, along with the Sun and Saturn and Jupiter. So all of this is meaning, so the 2nd house is my inner needs, and the ruler is Venus, and then the 6th house is to do with my work and how I'm going about that. So then I would look at the aspects also. Now, the other thing that's important is that with astrology, evolutionary astrology, we're looking at the soul journey. So we're looking at the healing journey of our own life, and healing is not all or nothing, because we're continuously going through events and things. But as we clean up the past by looking at our chart and understand and integrating what needs to be integrated, we get to self-actualize. And this is why human beings are here, to self-actualize. Another friend of mine who's an evolutionary astrologer said, and this is really worth thinking about, so we get to integrate and understand this. If we feel confused or upset or obsessed by another or whatever, so if we feel upset or obsessed by something or whatever it is, that is our unconscious trying to work towards individuation and consciousness. So we mustn't give ourselves a hard time when we're going through things. We're trying to integrate something. We don't need to be somewhere else. We need to deal with what's in front of us. And through transits, we can see changes that take place. On the 28th, we've got I'm going to have a full moon in the sign of Leo at 23 degrees. So you would look where that's going to happen for you. I'm going to do a video at the weekend for that. And then we've got Mercury, which you can currently see as 21 degrees of Aquarius here. That's going to go retrograde when it reaches 26 degrees, and that will be January the 30th. It's going to go retrograde, and then it will go forward again on the 21st of February at 11 degrees. Okay, so that's that. And then let's look at a few of these aspects going on. Something I spotted here, we will say we got the sun at 3 degrees in Aquarius, but what I spotted was the Saturn Chiron. If you look at Chiron, this is our wound, the wounded healer. And what we've got is that it's our hypersensitivity. So this is the collective chart. And then if we look at that, that's 5 degrees. And we look here, we've got Saturn, which is our restriction at 4 degrees. And it's literally already in orb. So we've got a sextile to that. And with this, we have the potential to exercise greater self-discipline and work towards healing, what's unresolved, or unresolved, what's unresolved in us. And healing becomes a matter of practicality and, beginning to materialize our goals in realistic ways. And this helps us to refine. So that's quite a nice aspect we've got there currently. And then Venus conjunct Pluto, because it's at 17 degrees, it's moving on in, it's applying. So this, you might have this in your natal chart, Venus conjunct Pluto, but for the collective, this manifests itself. It's with, it'll give us very deep and intense feelings, which can be long lasting, as this transit goes on. So we'll feel a lot of deep and intense feelings, and we might, feel sort of at a disadvantage, with this conjunction, if we suffer from jealousy, so there can be jealousy with this. So we want to watch out, because Venus is to do with our inner needs and Pluto is transformation. So we want to, watch ourselves over the next few days, that we don't push things and we're looking after ourselves. We've got the North Node. I need to show you this. So the North Node, if you take this North Node here and the South Node, they're at 17 degrees. And then we've got here, we have Neptune. So we've got a square going on here, and the nodes move round the chart this way, and the planets move around the chart this way. So the moon, in the coming hours, it's going to move into Gemini. The moon spends 2.5 days in each sign. And then with the North Node squared to Neptune, it basically is where there's something, because it's squaring the nodes, it's like a skip step. We're trying to figure something out, and it's to do with our spirituality, because Neptune is to do with things that we can't see, what's beyond this realm. And then if we look at Neptune is to do with the future, but not Neptune, the North Node is to do with the future, and the South Node is to do with the past. So it's where we're sacrificing with this Neptune here in Pisces. It's about sacrificing, and it's about our beliefs, and something from the past, where basically changing our beliefs and our spirituality. And also Sagittarius is about justice, and it's also about philosophy. And if we think about at the moment, with all of this COVID, people have not been able to attend church, for instance. So people are probably questioning their religious beliefs. I'm not saying everybody, I'm not suggesting that to be the case, but we can see what's gone on, where people have had to be on their own. And also we've got, we sort of have to come back to ourselves, and relationships, have taken, a lot of the relationships that we've been in, we've not been able to see people. And this is where we've had to step back into ourselves and realize that other people are not our savior. So with this, also the isolation, that we've had with people having COVID and being unwell and having to isolate on their own. So it's been really difficult. And because Neptune is to do with the beyond this realm, we're looking at, if we're looking at the mask thing, like when we look at what's going on, it's like we can't see the people smile, we can just see people's eyes, and people can hear and see, so we're sort of restricted, to our eyes and our ears when we're out in public. And Neptune is, the senses as well, but beyond the earthly senses. If you think about when you go to sleep, we have a whole world that we go into, and when we're asleep, we don't experience, like smell or touch or anything. We sleep, and we just, we're in a different world. So also, something's falling away here from the past, but the resolution node is the past, because I've been taught in evolutionary astrology, if you stand on the planet and you look inward towards the chart, so let's say you're standing here looking with your eyes going inward, then you point your arm out to the left, and whatever is to the left is the resolution node. So in this case, it's the South Node. Then what we have is that, we are at a turning point with this Neptune. We're what Neptune does ultimately, it dissolves things. So it will dissolve our illusions. And if we think about the illusions we've had about ownership of things, and even to the point of the way we look, with COVID, we've not been able to, show ourselves. So, and our items of what we've got, we've had to become very humble during this period. We got the sun trine to the moon right now as well. So the sun here is trine to the moon as it moves through. And actually, is this correct? Let me see. The sun square Mars. So you can see that the sun is it's a ply-in as well. It's moving on in. And the sun to the moon is also, it's a ply-in, but the sun moves slowly. So the moon's just going to move off there, looking at this chart. The sun is conjunct Jupiter, and this can bring people who have this in their natal chart, like material success, the sun Jupiter, and, opens to horizons. It opens things up for us, and it can also cause vanity, but, also make people aware of their success. So, but this is for us at the moment, the collective chart. And the sun is square Uranus, And this can create too much individualism and selfish and make us a bit erratic as this goes on. And again, that's applying. It will be conjunct in a few days, or not conjunct, sorry, it will be in a complete square, because the square is 90 degrees. So when the sun gets up to 6 degrees, then we have that square. The sun conjunct Pluto as well. And this is great for psychoanalysis and looking at, ourselves and looking at the unconscious, and below the subconscious, looking at any manipulation that we may be up to in our inner world. And the moon is trine to Venus, it's trining Saturn, and the moon is trine to Pluto as well. So the moon is trine to Pluto at this time, so this is harmonious, and it can be an intense, it can feel intense emotionally. The Venus sextile Neptune here, so you've got Venus and sextiling that Neptune, and that can give us compassion. And also it's a great time for art work and inspiration, creativity as well. The Mars square Jupiter is very close at the moment, and this can make us reckless also, and extreme reactions. And it's also where we may, want to look at, money as well. Let me just look at this again, Mars and Jupiter, because Jupiter is about expansion and Mars is our direction. And then Mars squaring Saturn is not very constructive, because, Saturn wants to restrict, and Mars wants to get on with things and be impulsive. And particularly, if we look at that within us, because clearly a lot of us right now are just stuck and not being able to move forward. So we need a lot of patience with ourselves right now. And the Mars conjunct Uranus, and this makes us, this can give a feeling of independence. So it's a double, it's an interesting thing there, where we have the Saturn restriction, but then we have something else going on with this conjunction. The Mars passed over 2 days ago, or a day ago, it passed over Uranus. And it's like, here we don't want routine. And it's also, we prefer solving problems on our own with this, because we're individual. And I feel a bit like I'm doing that at the moment. I just want to be left to myself to solve a few of my own life problems. That's what I'm up to, or problems or challenges. And also that can cause a lot of impulsivity. So, but Mars will move off, and then it's going to be conjunct Lilith. That will be fun. I'll talk about Lilith in another video. And the Jupiter conjunct Saturn, as we can see here, the Jupiter conjunct Saturn here, and it's it's binding relationships, and where we want to, and it's about teaching as well. And if Jupiter becomes dominant here, though, then Saturn's energies are suppressed. But if we look at this, Saturn is applying to Jupiter, but I'm still doing a lot of learning in the applying of planets as well myself. And the ideal would be that both are harmonious. That would be ideal. And then Jupiter square Uranus, again, is about the desire for independence. So we're in a bit of a tug of war at the moment, it would seem. And then Saturn square Uranus, this is also where we can basically often have no principles and be a bit chaotic. So that's the chart. And now I'm going to show you solar fire, and let's go ahead a little bit. So what I'm going to do is go to a new share, and this is solar fire, which I adore. And I'm going to show you the spotlight. So this is a form of psychology. When we look at our own chart, we're able to see what we're feeling and what the planets are telling us. So if you can see, this is UK time up here, and it's 22:30 p.m. And what we have is you can see here that you've got this Neptune squaring, which you couldn't see on the other chart, the nodes. And, we're going to find our way eventually, because this North Node is applying some, in time. And then we've got here, I will say in April, actually, I know what, I'm not going to jump too far ahead with this, but in April, we will have Pluto will go retrograde for 5 months. That happens to every year. Planets go retrograde different times, and that will then go back to, as it transits back. It will be interesting, because not sure how far ahead it will go, but it will link in with this Eris, which is the goddess of discord, which is fascinating. Eris takes 560 years to move around the chart. And I'll do some more work on that as well, because I've been talking about Eris a lot, but I've got some more study to do there. And Lilith, I'm very familiar with in the chart. I've got a lovely book on Lilith that I found online that's got some beautiful stuff in it and explaining a lot about Black Moon Lilith. So that's it for today, but we'll go ahead a few hours and I'll show you the moon changing from Taurus. So we watch here. We're watching this go, 28, 29. So there you go. So in 23rd, this is tomorrow. So the moon will then move into the sign of Gemini for 2.5 days. And then what we have is that we've got these squares going on still. We've got also, let's see what else is going on here. We've got Venus is in conjunct to the North Node. So that would be an interesting one that I could look at in a few days. And also that applies now, actually, that in conjunct. And then we've got here, Pluto. We've got these trines going onto the moon from these planets up here, which is quite nice. And then we've got these squares and then the sextiles. So let's go a few weeks ahead and see what we can see briefly before I go. I'll go like 2 weeks ahead. That's the 30th, actually. So this is when we will have Mercury go retrograde. So let's see, Mercury on the chart is here. So it stations on the 30th here. It's stationed. And we can watch that go backwards, and I'll leave it there. So that's 1 week. And then you're going to watch 26 degrees. You're going to watch that go backwards. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3. That's 3 weeks. And then it stations again. It'll station on the 21st. And then if we go days, so you know where you're at, and you want to look at what house that's happening in for you, because that will define the area of life that you're working on. And it's stationed still, and then it goes direct. 22nd, it's direct and at 11 degrees. So it's going to be there for some time in the sign of Aquarius, and it's about thinking outside the box with the communication. So it will be interesting that we had the inauguration with this go on here, and it will be interesting to see how this plays out, you know, not just only in, you know, globally in countries and the collective, but in our own lives as well. Thanks for watching, and catch you later.